Welcome back to the Master Series. Throughout this worldwide health and financial crisis, Entertainment Partners has been producing a master series of live webinars focusing on COVID-19 impacts to the entertainment industry and its workers through in-depth discussions with EP's legal, tax, payroll, and production experts. And today we're joined by a wonderful group of outside experts. The purpose of this master series is to give you the information you need right now to make informed decisions. All of these master series have been archived and are available for viewing at theproductioncommunity.com. Today is our 56th webinar since things have started with COVID. So go in there, check it out. We have a wealth of information related to COVID and just the industry in general. Please check it out at theproductioncommunity.com. There's a fantastic archive of webinars there. Check out anything you've missed. So 2 quick housekeeping items as we get started. First, you're welcome to post questions for our panelists in the Q&A section of the Zoom call. If we have time, we are going to do our best to answer them. Also, please take 30 seconds to answer a very short survey at the end of this live webinar. That includes the opportunity to suggest topics for future webinars. Now, if you want to take longer than 30 seconds to answer the survey, that's up to you, but your feedback is important and we want to know how we did today, and 30 seconds is all we ask. Today, we're shining a spotlight on how to go from audit defense to audit offense, and we're excited to have a top shelf panel of experts, starting with David Brauer. David is a CPA. He's the principal at Brauer & Company. He's a third-party auditor who works with productions across the industry. He has 25 years of experience in entertainment and over 10 years working in tax incentive audits throughout the United States. Scott Cohn is a seasoned production accountant working in the industry for over 30 years. He's worked on incentive projects all over the United States and is currently based in California working on This Is Us. Mary Ann Fernandez is an accountant, auditor, and consultant for production companies. She's a former supervisory auditor with the New Mexico Taxation and Revenue Department, where she oversaw the film production tax credit program. She's worked with many networks, studios, and production companies throughout her career. We're also joined by Jeremy Wilcox. He is a production accountant, producer, and New Mexico and Canada film rebate specialist with 13 years experience in budgets and incentives. He's been an accountant for NBCU, Disney, Fox, and numerous other studios, networks, and independent productions. We'll also be joined briefly later by guest stars George Lakis and Darren Willner. Both are in the Solutions Consultants Department at EP. George has over 30 years experience as an accountant and finance executive, and Darren is an expert on Hollywood production offices and production technology. And our host today is Melissa Wiseman, Tax Credit Placement and Incentives Director at Entertainment Partners. As a 20-year veteran of the production accounting and production incentives, she is an expert in all incentives jurisdictions. Welcome, everyone. Welcome, Melissa. I'm going to throw it over to you.
Thank you, James, and thanks to our great team of panelists joining us to discuss turning your incentive audit defense into audit offense. As productions kick into high gear and are now seeking more innovative solutions, 2 things will still be absolute for these productions: taxes and audits. As in the U.S. alone, there are 32 incentives with well over $1.5 billion per year in tax incentive money available. This doesn't even account for uncapped programs such as Georgia. As you may know, EP has a full service incentives department. Not only do we offer financing, placing transferable tax credits, and super loan out services specific to New Mexico, but we handle tax incentive administration. With incentive administration, EP will hold your hand through the entire process, set you up for success. Let us take something off of your plate and make this a more seamless process for you. The idea for this webinar came about from a couple of different examples our department came across recently. I thought, why not try to explain in better detail how EP's technology can help mitigate the risk of losing out on those crucial incentive dollars. To set the stage for what our panelists will be talking about, let's briefly go through the cycle of an incentive and what the timeline looks like. So you'll see here the cycle of the incentive. You've got prep, shoot, post. You know, that's the component of what makes that incentive. The prep period is what we'll talk about. You'll hear us say a lot about set you up for success. Do that in prep. That's crucial. We'll talk about commencing the audit process, finalizing the incentive, and then the final payout. The 3 buckets we really want to focus on today, though, right, is the start of the audit. David and Mary Ann, they've got to get started somewhere. The audit process, their process as we move through through the incentive cycle. And then finalizing that credit. And again, these are all broad strokes because we're talking about in the US alone, 32 different jurisdictions. There's all types of different rules and regulations, so it can vary. But these are the basic components that you will have to start with. So when we talk about the timing of each one, when you talk about the audit commencing, it can take weeks to months. So that just means weeks if you've got everything buttoned up, right? You've got everything all lined up and ready to go. It can take months if you don't have that crucial paperwork. Audit process, 3 to 6 months. Again, can vary by jurisdiction. 3 months is on a very good scale. That's if you have partners like ourselves holding you, walking you through the process, good accountants like Scott and Jeremy out there. And then finalizing the credit, again, indicative of the jurisdiction, can take 3 to 8 months. And that's just if there's an additional layer of approval. But let's talk about the pitfalls and those impacts. So the pitfalls can be not having clean paperwork, not knowing where to find it. I like to say, know where the bodies are buried. You need to be able to go in there and find that. And the impacts of that is the payout timing, right? So the longer it takes you to get paid out, it's crucial, especially for independent productions, as they may be financing this tax incentive. And the longer the clock goes, the longer they're paying in interest. Additionally, you can lose out on those disallowances if you do not have your paperwork. So I wanted to start with us sharing war stories, right? I'll start with mine. As we think about time savings here, productions deal with a lot of contracts. When you have contracts and multiple amendments to those contracts, losing track of documents can be losing money. I saw a production firsthand in jeopardy of losing over $750,000 in tax credits. It took several months to clear this up, costing the production interest as they financed the tax incentive while they scrambled to find the paperwork. If the client would have used synchronized Smart Hub Vault, it could have been as easy as a click of a button. So time to share those war stories. David, you're down here to me, so I want to start with you.
Sure, thank you. Welcome, everyone. Throughout the years, I've had many war stories, as everyone can imagine, with the multiple audits that go on. My favorite ones, usually at least once a year without fail, an independent producer will walk into our office with a shopping bag full of receipts and then hand it to us and go, now how do I get my check and how long is it going to take? No ledger, no production account usually, completely unorganized. So those months turn into several months to close to a year sometimes. When you have to educate them on how to set it up and how to go about getting their incentive correctly.
Right. And so let's move on to Mary Ann. We'll stick with the CPAs, auditors.
So Melissa, one of the worst situations I've seen is an independent production lose all their the incentive on all their petty cash expenditures and some of their accounts payable expenditures because they had their records stored in a warehouse and they had water damage. So the petty cash receipts and all the records were completely ruined. So they lost out on that because we weren't able to support those costs. And some of the accounts payable, they weren't able to go back to the vendors and get proper documentation. So they lost out on quite a bit of money because they weren't able to.
And I know we deal with a lot of different productions, but do you happen to remember the financial impact that it had on the bottom dollar?
They probably lost about $400,000 on.
Wow.
On the accounts payable and petty cash.
Yeah.
Which is a lot of money. It was probably a third of their incentive dollars.
Okay. And so let's turn it over to the production accountant. Scott, you want to start?
Sure.
Oh, I think we're having some trouble with Scott. Maybe we'll start with Jeremy until he comes back on.
My war story actually goes back to David Brauer. I had done. Hello?
I think we're having some issues with your connection, Scott. Maybe I'm going to jump to Jeremy and we'll come back to you quickly, okay?
Okay.
Jeremy?
Previously, I used to assist small productions in submitting their tax credit. And so I'd usually take over the accounting boxes from that production accountant. And, it would just be a complete nightmare. Nothing filed correctly. But the biggest kind of dilemma is you work through the incentive, you get it to the tax and rev department, you pull the receipts that they're looking for, you try to get it all back in the right place. And then that production team has left back home, and you're stuck with all these bankers boxes trying to get them back to whoever they are. And I've sat there for 2 years with bankers boxes trying to find the producer to get them back to. So.
Right. And the space that it takes for those. And I always like to say inheriting a problem is one of the favorite things I have in this industry. But Scott, I think you're streaming better now.
Is that good now?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So my problem was, my war story is actually with David Brauer. I had done a show for 2 years in Louisiana under that tax credit.
That's how we met, I believe.
That's exactly, that is how we met.
Yep.
In the Big Easy. And I had it all set up, and we had a system, and we had all the flags, and everything was all set up. So we came back to Los Angeles, and I was like, okay, great, just set this up, and we're ready to go, and it's all done, and it's all together.
Right.
And then I met with David, and he had sort of a kickoff meeting where he talked about this. He goes, oh yeah, in California, you have to use these flags.
So different system here in California.
You're right. Different jurisdiction.
Tax credit is tax credit.
No.
But I found out very quickly that they were all very, very different.
Right.
So we had to go back through, I don't know, about 1,000 or so transactions and reflag them all, which it could have been a nightmare had we not met with David early on.
Right.
But yet it was still a lot of unnecessary duplication of work.
Absolutely. And that goes back to set up for success, right? Which we'll talk about throughout. So circling back to that, I thought it might be good to speak to smart accounting and how this helps with incentive audits. So George, as our smart accounting expert, can you explain the Freefield Co process and how our software can make it easier to identify those eligible costs?
Yeah, I definitely can.
Thanks, George.
With tax incentives, there's always going to be a need to identify specific types of expenditures, and you're going to identify those type of expenditures utilizing the free field coding section in any accounting application. In Smart Accounting, we have up to 4 different free fields that you could use. And this free field coding is going to be based on the type of expenditures that tax incentive needs. As Scott was saying, the tax incentive requirements for different types of expenditures in California was a lot different than when he was in Louisiana.
Right.
So you're going to identify them here. For example, you could say LL for local labor, NQ for non-qualified spend, QR for qualified resident, and so on. You also have the ability to use more than one free field. You could, if you need to, you could identify the type of expenditure. So you could, use another free field for the type of expenditure, and you could also use a free field to identify, whether or not it's an asset. This is not tax incentive related, but this is related to the production where you actually have to, identify the assets.
And
but
I would, if I could just interrupt, George,
sure.
I'm sorry. An asset actually in a lot of jurisdictions can be indicative of an incentive because they're going to want to see what your assets were and maybe have an allocation for those if there's a depreciation factor. Go ahead.
Yes, or a disposition and how you got rid of it if you made money off of it.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And you have the ability to, you will need to separate it and flag those as different expenditures. And another way you could utilize the free field is there could be an area where you have another jurisdiction where you're able to get the incentive. For example, here, you got the Jefferson Parish. Louisiana, I get the Louisiana incentive, but if I'm shooting in Jefferson Parish, they offer an incentive also. So I'm going to have to fill out an application there, and I'm going to need to separate out those costs. So now that you got these, free fields set up, you're going to want to run the ledgers for the auditors. And what you're going to do when you run the ledgers, you have the ability to filter by those free fields that you just set up so that you're giving the auditor exactly what they want, and they could easily be identified. Now,
I'm sure that's music to David and Mary Ann's ears.
Yeah.
It really is. It's really helpful, by the way, when the flagging is done correctly, because, for example, in New Mexico, they require the auditors to prepare the Bibles in certain sections and be organized in a certain way. So it's always great when we can use the free fields to make sure that we're separating those correctly.
Agreed.
That's good. Hey, I want to bring in the attention too. There are two options that you may want to utilize in the ledger that you may not be aware of. And one of these options is right here where it says net effect for DC. And DC stands for distribution change. And when you select this option, what it's going to do is if you have a coding correction and you utilize the distribution change to do it, I don't need to see the original in and the corrected out. I only need to see the last item that is in the ledger. So what this does, it doesn't include the out and the in, it just includes the latest one, and it makes for a much cleaner ledger.
Absolutely.
Yeah, if I can interject for a second, this is David
Yeah.
Brauer. It's extremely important, and especially in jurisdictions like Tennessee, you have to submit them a ledger after it's been audited and cleaned up by all the ins and outs, as you said, for all the adjustments, because they make their own selection as well. And if they select something that was not offset, it can work against you.
It's interesting you say that, David. I had an audit in Illinois that ended up in the random sampling. They chose, unfortunately, we had an actor who lost their check, and when they lost their check, we ended up replacing the check 3 times. So we had a cancel, reissue, cancel, reissue. We had an in, out, in, out, in, out. In the random sampling, they chose 2 of the ins that were offset by outs, but they didn't see that because they didn't choose it, and it became a big problem in figuring it out. So if I would have had this net effect for distribution change, that would have never even happened.
Right.
The other element that you want to may consider is replace the payment number with the reference field. And this is nice because the check number for the payment will then be easily identifiable with the transactions. So that's how you can run a ledger, and that's how the smart accounting system provides the information that is used for the auditors. I just had a really quick question for the team. How do you name your free field coding? You know, Jeremy, how do you name free field codings?
A lot
in the system?
A lot of the time it comes, you know, there's some direction from the studio. But you definitely try to utilize something that is going to translate from, you know, your team on the ground, the studio who needs to be able to run these ledgers from a global standpoint, and then also be able to communicate that information through the auditor all the way to the tax and rev department of the jurisdiction you're in. So they have some general sense of what you're trying to say in 2 characters. So, you know, that's kind of the way that we approach it.
What about you, Scott? You do about the same thing?
Yes, and one of the things is there has to be a consistency throughout for every different jurisdiction, because when David and Mary Ann come in and audit, they don't want to have to learn your language, as it were. And the studio wants, across 20 shows, they want to be able to accumulate those numbers and analyze them in their own way. So it's important in that regard that everyone's using the same flags for coding.
Right.
Well, that brings me to David and Mary Ann. How often are you, consulted in helping set up memo code fielding, free field coding for the accountants? Mary Ann?
Well, I usually have a kickoff meeting with my clients at the beginning of a show. Usually once the production accountants hit the ground in New Mexico, I meet with them and we go over the coding and all the requirements that are needed to submit the package over to the, in this case, New Mexico Film Office. There's requirements that have to be met before the audit even is accepted, even the application is accepted, one being the stats. So we go over all that sort of information that is needed so that they can set up and easily run reports and get that information once they're in wrap, so that it's not a difficult or time-consuming and frustrating situation for everybody. If the flagging isn't done correctly from the beginning, once we get to wrap, or once the post accountants get it, they have a really hard time trying to either reflag, recreate, or set up the information to get it to the submission point.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. David, about the same, right?
About the same. Yeah, I was going to say, I agree. With the kickoff meetings, we try to do those in every jurisdiction. We start an audit. Most jurisdictions have already established their tagging requirement. And depending on where you're filming, can be quite complex, especially in a state like California, if you go outside the zone. So we make sure that if the state has already established it, we set those guidelines in the beginning, and we also make sure that we're available throughout the process. If they have a question on something, as long as we're maintaining our independence, they could ask us a question on a specific item, because the tagging can get tricky. So especially if they're going too far down many weeks of payroll, they have to correct something, it's better to always ask a question up front, get your auditor involved up front, go to the experts at EP and other jurisdictions, and make sure that everything's set up correctly.
And David, I'm sorry, George, but
no, I'm just going to give it back to you, Melissa. I'm going
thank you.
to let you take over.
Thanks so much for that. And when we talk about free field coding, David, you know, in a previous conversation we had talked about in the era of COVID. Can you talk a little bit about how you've consulted your clients about COVID related costs?
Yeah, there's so many unknowns obviously right now with what's taking place with all the expenses being incurred in COVID and people working from home and still incurring costs, the whole stages. What we're recommending is for everyone to use an additional free field code of CO or CV to identify all those costs. And then once all the jurisdictions kind of come up with their decision on how those costs will be either qualified or not qualified, they can be easily identifiable, especially also if there's going to be an insurance claim on it as well. That way, it'll just be a lot easier for us to identify them, and we can then quantify the impact, because the jurisdictions may come back to us and say, well, how much on this project are we talking about that they could potentially lose in qualified expenditures because they're unable to perform that work within the jurisdiction.
And you've set them up for success on the front end, so they're not having to scramble on the back end to answer those questions. So that's great. And, you know, David, this will be a loaded question, but how does a not so organized ledger slow down the audit process?
I mean, it's night and day. It really is night and day. And I say that not only from us trying to figure out what our sampling is going to be, but also it usually will cause multiple tests and sample pulls for us, potential extrapolations where they're going to lose tax credit money, and that the amount of time you put up earlier, 3 to 6 months for us to complete an audit, becomes 9 to 12 months easily. If it's not organized in the beginning.
Wow. Yeah. And Mary Ann, do you have anything to add to that from the audit?
Well, I totally agree with David. It is more time consuming. And also, I just want to say it is more costly for the production company because they have to put more people and pay wages and other costs to try and get that information. When they're not organized, it takes a lot longer. So it's also a cost to the production company.
Yeah, and what I'm hearing a lot here, is that clock I was talking about ticking, even to George's example of Illinois. So, but I kind of wanted to move as we, are talking about this setting up for success process to the production accountants, maybe explain how Smart Start has helped with items such as resident forms, where you either get an additional uplift in the jurisdiction for hiring locally, or that's how they qualify, is that you have to hire locally. So Scott, maybe we'll start with you.
Yeah, well, Smart Start is it's made things a lot easier in a lot of different ways. I mean, the first thing is once you get it set up properly for whomever it is that you're hiring in the local jurisdictions, they put all the forms that are required for both the studio, the payroll, the tax incentive. And at that point, Smart Start does not allow you to submit your deal memo until you've completed everything. So it's hard not to have a fully completed packet to submit, which means you don't have to chase people down. And you don't have all the sign here stickies, and it cuts down on paper. And it's been a great thing. And and even with the COVID-19, it's becoming even more important because people are getting hired electronically when we're not all in the same place.
Right. And Jeremy, can you speak a little bit more to Smart Start before we have Darren maybe pull it up?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's kind of like been a game changer in the sense of what Scott just mentioned, of being able to streamline the process of getting it to the crew member in a timely manner, getting it all approved, 100% completely approved by the crew member. They can't skip past the box, and getting it back to us in a timely manner
Right.
to get it over to almost instantly over to the payroll company once it's got a kind of a first look on it.
Right.
And then to be able to change it, change the structure to go in line with the studio or the residency document backup that's required.
Right. So, and I thought it would be good for Darren, if we could, our guru on Smart Start, Darren, thank you, could pull that up, and Jeremy, maybe you could just walk us through, and Scott, feel free to chime in too, of how this works in real time.
Yeah, definitely. So I think what Darren brought up was kind of the start work has already gone out to the crew member. They filled it out and it's come back to us in the payroll team. And we have the ability to look at their start work and kind of determine really quickly, have they filled out all the documents completely? Has the residency document come back approved, which Darren is pulling up now, and you can see it's at the bottom, it's got a digital signature on it that, the tax and rev has agreed with. We can also look to see if they've attached their backup residencies document in New Mexico. It's a New Mexico driver's license. So we can go ahead and confirm, okay, they have a New Mexico driver's license. What I like my team to do is when they're on the ground, is to take it a step further. Not only are these icons telling you that they've uploaded it or not, between the gray says it's not been uploaded, the green says it's been uploaded, but to actually go in and verify that it's a valid document. And once they verified it's a valid document, they use that kind of flag icon to say, oh, this crew member is good to go. I'm moving on. They can make it red and say this person's not good to go. And then we can use the filter icon to filter by those flags and say, I need to contact all the crew members that don't have a driver's license. And then you can then download the crew members' information into an Excel format and email them or call them instantly straight from Smart Start. So it's definitely like sped up the process for us with the ability to track and stay on top of those residency documents. Because if you don't have them, you'll lose out on those wages.
And you're specific to New Mexico, but David, I thought you could speak to other jurisdictions that require resident forms or documentation.
Yeah, we work in many. Ones off the top of my head are Virginia, Nevada, Tennessee. They do require residency forms, and they have to be complete. And they usually look at 100% in the jurisdictions. And if it's not complete, then you're going to miss out on some additional uplift incentive. I know I'm working on Nevada one where they didn't get all the residency forms filled out. The Nevada Film Commission, because it's not too many people that work there, if they're not aware of the people, they've been trying to track down these individuals to fill out the residency form, and they just had no luck. So we're going to have to reduce those costs, unfortunately, from their incentive. And also coming in 3.0 in California, there's going to be residency requirement for people working outside the Los Angeles zone.
Right.
That information is going to be pertinent in order to get the uplift outside of the Los Angeles zone as well.
So I'm hearing a lot of losing money because of not having resident forms or documentation. So
Correct.
Darren, can you explain? I kind of wanted to punt it over to you to explain or show the features of how this works for other jurisdictions, since we were just looking specifically to New Mexico.
Yeah, any production that's being set up in Smart Start has the ability of pulling in the localized paperwork. So depending on the studio location where we're shooting, we're going to pull in the right documentation, the right residency forms, and even there's a lot of information, and it could be even like a union form that needs to be added. So that's done automatically. So there's no additional step that the studio needs to take. So depending on where you're shooting, and maybe what the individual crew members' residence state actually is, it's going to pull in some of that extra paperwork. So Smart Start is instead of having to look backwards and say, oh, we need this paperwork added, it's happening in real time and creating the packet for that employee based on either answers that the hiring manager is providing, or answers that the crew member is providing, and providing them the right information there. Yeah.
And I'm hearing real time there, right? And so that's happening in real time. I'm sorry, Darren, did you want to show us anything else before I move on?
I did want to show you one more thing, because I know in our conversations with the audit team, we've been talking a lot about how the auditors actually get access to this information. And I believe David, when we were kind of just chatting a little bit earlier, he said no auditor is going to come into Smart Start, and we don't expect them to.
Right.
And there's a direct link between Smart Start and the Synchronized Smart Hub. So when I go ahead and click Charles's packet, and I'm going to go ahead and approve that packet right now. You'll see it's 1032 right now. So I approve that packet, and I'm just going to just refresh my screen here. And here's Charles Wilmot. His packet was just added, and all of the forms were added directly into Smart Start. So right here, I've actually just gotten the forms in one folder. But what we can do is we can actually take the New Mexico residency forms, as well as the picture ID that was uploaded, and put that into a separate folder. So when you are going into an audit, you're able to pull the information that you need right from that one folder, rather than needing to pick and choose from different folders. So you would essentially be able to grab everything all at once, and then download it in a zip file. We also have a partnership with GRM for, you mentioned earlier, the Smart Hub Vault. So if your production company doesn't want the auditors to actually download and retain that information that you're providing them, you can actually utilize this other system, Smart Hub Vault, to really secure those documents. They won't be able to be pulled out of Smart Hub Vault and really retained within that system in a zero footprint viewer with that system. So we have all levels of security depending on who you are and what you need to see. And I think I'll be back.
Yeah, thank you, Darren. This has been very informative. And I know when you were showing this, specifically Jeremy, thought, oh, it feeds right into Synchronized Smart Hub. And I think that's so wonderful, because you obviously, for auditor reasons, they want to be independent. They don't want to be in that Smart Start program. So I think that's a great angle there for our top technology solutions.
And the ability to kind of sift out documents that one department may need versus documents that another department may need, and only being able to allow them access to certain documents out of that start packet.
Yeah. So thank you for showing us that.
No
Darren.
problem.
That
Thank
was
you.
Great.
I'll see you in a little bit.
Yeah. So Scott, have you ever been able to gather pertinent documents from crew after the fact, or after they have been paid, they're wrapped, they're gone?
At best, it's difficult. It's rare. The part of the problem there, what would happen in the past is people would just fill out like the EP Start Close form and maybe change the deal memo and send it in. And we were required to pay them with that. And that's where Smart Start makes you do that. So then when in those situations, we'd have to go back and try to get a hold of them and get them to do it. And there's a very low percentage of compliance for that. So
Jeremy, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's
almost
impossible to chase them down. I will say, having everything in Smart Start, at least you kind of like with my team, we flagged the people that we need to chase after, and we try to hound them weekly to get us, any missing documentation, whether it's a residency document or say backup for a box rental inventory. We're able to kind of sift through that and contact them utilizing the system.
Yeah, and as we talk about these resident forms, I wanted to share my story of a recent client who didn't obtain resident forms properly. So if you hire us from an incentives management perspective, we're going to try to spot check those resident forms. But, like Darren was saying, it's all real time. It's happening in real time. There's not a lot of time for a clerk to be able to scan those to us and for us to look at them, right? And so that client lost out on close to $80,000 in an incentive, which obviously they use Smart Start now because they weren't on that before. But if you have that technology, it's able to help you in real time see what you need to mitigate before they're gone and wrapped on the show. So, so Jeremy, have you ever seen lost paperwork or had backup misfiled, and just wanted to know how did Synchronize and SmartHub help with that challenge?
Yeah, I think like the time previous to Synchronize Hub and Smart Start, I would go in and sift through the AP files and try to pull out a document. I was looking at backup for budgeting. The clerk may have sadly misfiled the document, or somebody else pulled the document because they needed to reissue a check. Oftentimes that just doesn't make it back to its original spot. And so you're kind of stuck, looking for a lost document that
Right.
is super frustrating. The nice thing about, having your document scanned and going directly into the Synchronized Hub, it's all done digitally. It's tracked by either the transaction number, the vendor name, or the check number. And if there is an issue, the accounting system you're using usually tells the Smart Hub, I need these documents because you've cut a check for them. And if they don't get those documents, it will send you kind of a list of missing items.
Oh,
so
good.
then you can go in and try to search for those items and make sure your system is complete with all the
Right.
transactions. in your
Topic for a
system.
different day, but that helps with
Yeah.
internal audits with the
Oh,
studios, right?
huge.
Yeah, yeah,
Well,
yeah.
and also,
Yeah.
you want to make sure you have 100% of your backup when you are going to a tax incentive audit,
Yep.
because if they do pull one of those items and you're missing it, you could lose out on a lot of money.
Yeah.
And to
Yeah.
interject real fast, certain
Yeah,
states
please.
such as currently New Jersey and Alabama, they require 100%. So we look at every single document, and
Wow.
if it's not there, we move on. And if it can't get tracked down, they lose the incentive money.
Wow. And Mary Ann, maybe you can speak to the percentage of error in New Mexico.
Right, and I was just going to say, in New Mexico, their sampling process, they only allow 2 errors per strata based on how they're pulling their samples. And if you have more than 2 errors, and an error would mean also something that's missing. So if we can't support it, it's an error. Then you get penalized, and you get a percentage of error extrapolated through that entire population. So it could mean a large amount of money
Right.
lost,
Mhm.
especially on those larger value stratums.
Yeah, that's what I keep hearing is lost money there, right?
Yeah.
So, Darren, I thought maybe you could bring up Synchronized Smart Hub to show us what it would look like from an audit perspective, especially how virtual audits and less paper contact will be the new norm.
Yeah, happy to do that. So here again is Synchronized Smart Hub, and I've pulled myself out to the main folders here. So in Synchronized Smart Hub, you can only see what you have access to, and you can only access what you can see. So an auditor can be either provided access to the folders in which they're going to audit, so they can come in and they can take a look at, they can go in and look at all these folders, or they can, maybe you want to prep an audit. So you want to create some folders, your AFM audit, your DGA audit, your SAG audit, whatever the case may be. So, and then you can give that auditor access to just this one folder. Now, I know, again, talking with Mary Ann, she was talking a little bit about the search function. And the search function is a great way to actually really power your audit that much more. So you're looking for a check number. So, you have to actually just find that check number. You can actually, in the search area, rather than just using the search up here, which is a free field search, it searches the entire document. You can actually go right down and say, okay, I'm looking for a check number. I'm looking for check number 2001, and the system is actually just going to deliver to you the check that you're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
So making that audit process that much easier and better, and now just getting right to the root of what you're looking for.
Absolutely. And I think that was impactful for Mary Ann, because she was actually using the search tool, right? Which she appreciated, but the filter even, gets it even at that click of a mouse, right? That we spoke about earlier. So.
Yeah. So I don't know, Mary Ann, if you wanted to add anything. I know we're talking a lot for you, but happy to.
Right.
No, it's a great way to access the documents, pull them down, download them, and because New Mexico requires that we support every single transaction in their sample. So I download it and I save it into a file, and then I can zip those files and upload them directly to the department's secure website. So it's
Right.
great. It's a great tool for providing them the support, and I can just do it myself as I'm doing my testing, and
Right.
it goes really fast.
Yeah. So the more, Darren, did you have anything else to share or want to show us in this feature?
No, not unless anybody else wanted me to show anything.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's good to see that up on screen, because the more I learn about Synchronized Smart Hub, the more I see the true benefits. We had a scenario where FedEx lost one of the wrap boxes for production. It reminds me of your story earlier about the flood in the storage. Luckily, this box was accounts payable, which will be easier to create than those petty cash receipts that you spoke of. But there could have been close to $1 million in expenditures in that box of paper. And Synchronized Smart Hub would have made this task much easier for the client, right? That time saving, that clock always ticking. So as we look at time saving, Scott, can you think of ways that Synchronized Smart Start, has saved valuable time and effort for your department?
Yeah, well, yes, there's valuable time saved in just copying, chasing signatures, because it's one approval. Whereas on a deal memo, you might have to sign 4, 5, 6 different places or initial, and it can be reduced to one. There's not all the photocopying and the scanning. It automatically gets uploaded once it's approved. It just goes straight to EP. So there's just a lot of different ways that it just streamlines everything that we do.
Right.
For payroll.
That's great. And then Jeremy, can you speak to that maybe on the Synchronized Smart Hub side of things as well?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Scott on the payroll side, on the Smart Start side. From the Synchronized Hub side, the ability to, quickly pull up a backup for or check reissue, or to confirm, payment, or confirm before I send the ledgers off to the auditor. I like to kind of do a run through, and if I see something that I have a question on, I can look at it before I send the ledgers off. And also inter-department, we work so closely with production. They're always doing contracts. We're just making sure a contract is in place. They upload it into the Synchronized Hub. We can verify that that's been uploaded and signed, just confirming that all of our ducks are in a row to release payment, or, move seamlessly through the production process.
And one thing we've talked about in our conversation, Scott alluded to this, is that it's the one thing David and Mary Ann are going to request. It's the one thing you can't find. And, it's been 8 years since I've been in the field. And I just remember stacks of paperwork, here's the accounts payable to be filed because the clerk hasn't had time, and the payroll. And it's the one thing I need to find, and it's buried in this basket. And so, I think it's interesting, Scott, if you could add some clarity of that, process and how that works.
Right. Well, the one of the things that I do on my shows is, instead of filing, which is another huge time saver of having to prepare the labels, stick them on the file everything in there, is we kind of file straight into bankers boxes by transaction and check number. So it's all the AP, journal entries, studio uploads, downloads, whatever it is. And then once we accumulate 4, 5, 6 boxes, we send it off to GRM. They do the scanning, and usually within 3 days to a week, it's all up there. And so now you can look at it. So when someone says, hey, what happened to this? Instead of having to dig through the files and it not be there, which is, Murphy's Law, you just go online and you can search, either through GRM or Synchronized, and you can find your documents much faster.
Great. And so, David, maybe I can flip to you. How has Synchronized Smart Hub and having access to documents helped in the audit process that we spoke about?
Well, for us, it's helped tremendously. It makes the audit process go a lot faster.
Right.
For one, just driving out to a client in Los Angeles takes a lot of time.
Yes.
Not that I don't like to see Scott and pay a visit and chat with him, but
Free lunch.
and a free lunch. But for us, as a firm, we're almost completely paperless anyway. We all have multiple computer screens. So for us, it's extremely efficient for us to choose an item, find it immediately, and then test it immediately. And it also helps if we do have to do a second sampling. We don't have to bother the client. If we have access, we can go right in and do the second sampling immediately, which will save a ton of time. It is, on the paper audits, there's always that one selection, and I have a tendency to make that one selection that cannot be found or tracked down.
Right. Yeah. And Mary Ann, I thought it would be interesting too to hear from you and your perspective on that as well.
Well, I agree with David. It's totally time savings that are the biggest benefit. But in my situation, I really like it because I don't have to have all that information, which has a lot of PI information. I don't have to have it physically.
Right.
So, and I don't have to worry about disposing of it or sending it back and worrying that the information is going to get lost or in the wrong hands.
Yeah.
So for me, I feel a lot of,
security, maybe?
Security.
Yeah.
That I don't have all that information just, sitting around in my locked closet or because you never know. And then getting it back to the production, because some of the times they want me to dispose of it. And so I have to get burn boxes in and arrange for that, which is not something I like to do.
Right.
Or I have to send it back, and it's
cumbersome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's nice not to have to do that.
Yes, absolutely. And, I think it's interesting as we, talk about this of the new wave that we're in, right? And the digital solutions that are out there. So I think that will, only help even more. So, I think we're kind of getting to the end here, but I thought what I'd do is I just wanted to ask, maybe I'll start with Jeremy as we close. If you have any advice or additional thoughts to share about, setting up for success and how you can, be on go from the beginning.
I think it's key, reach out to a CPA or auditor in the jurisdiction that you're shooting in. Make sure you get as much information from them on how to preload your production to know exactly what they're going to need at the end of the production, so you can kind of follow, track that. Also reach out, a good example is to Entertainment Partners and kind of the support team when you're setting up, because you can really kind of work through we can have workflows of how these documents are going to be digitally transferred, where they need to go throughout the production and at the end of the production. Those are some, I think that's important.
And I think
setup.
Yeah, I think as we talk about these digital solutions too, I think that's wonderful advice, Jeremy, but also something to consider. If you are an EP client currently, you're utilizing our technology, reach out to us, see if you're utilizing it properly. We can create a scorecard, so to speak, as if you're being as efficient as possible with these tools available. So Scott, I'll go back to you though. Can you give us any advice or additional thoughts?
I just think you have to be very proactive, and you have to look for the information and look to have people that are the experts and have done it before, and just get their guidance and their help, because at the end of the day, it's going to save you a lot of time and a lot of aggravation and a lot of frustration trying to rework something that you could do up front just as easily.
Right.
And the technology gives us all these tools, and you might as well use them to your benefit.
Yep. So David, can I kick it over to you to give your advice and how to be set up for success?
Well, I love hearing hire your CPA early. That's music to my ears. I will say from our standpoint, our fee's the same whether you hire us in pre-production or you hire us once everyone's rolled off the production. And it's a lot smoother if you hire us in pre-production, because we do the kickoff meetings. We actually discuss pitfalls in the jurisdiction that we've seen on other audits to help avoid those on your current production. And we also set up the list of requirements that each state will have, because every state has different requirements. So you're aware of it ahead of time. And it just makes that transition so much smoother when it goes from principal to post. So the post accountants are inheriting a very clean ledger that's already been asked or looked at. And our audit process then can go a lot faster to get the incentives back to the productions that much faster.
Great. Thank you. Mary Ann?
Well, definitely, I agree with all that's been said, and just communicating and working together with your CPA and accountants to make sure all the information is flagged correctly and that all your records are in order, so that when you do get to the audit point, that everything goes smoothly and it, you know, and you'll maximize your incentive dollars.
Right. The most important, right? That timetable and the incentive dollars. Well, it's always so informative to collaborate with such knowledgeable people when it comes to incentive audits and EP's technology. I work in this every day, so I could talk on and on about it. But I appreciate everyone's time today and great discussion. So I thought I'd turn it back over to you, James, for any Q&A as we wrap up here.
Thanks, Melissa. And we've got some fabulous questions that have come in from the audience. So we do have time to answer some of them. If you haven't sent a question in, I encourage you, please go ahead and do so, and we'll try and get to it. I'd like to start with a question that came in from a production accountant based in New Orleans. She wants to know if states will take receipt copies instead of the originals, since everyone's going to be going paperless due to COVID. David, you maybe want to start with that?
Sure, I can definitely jump in. It's interesting that this question has been coming up quite a bit for us, and we are in the process of creating a matrix by state to see if they're going to accept DocuSign signatures, scanned copies of original receipts, as opposed to the original receipts themselves, or in digital copies. I can answer specifically on Louisiana. They told us they will not require physical files, and they have more information on their website as to how the digital formats need to be. So I would check there in the Louisiana Film website for that specific information. And as we get more and more information, if you want to reach out to us, I could also share this with the EP team so they have that information available to them. But all in all, it seems most jurisdictions understand what's going on and are moving to digital platforms for everything to be submitted digitally, at least during this time of COVID. Some say they may reevaluate once life goes back to some normalcy.
Right.
But as of now, everyone is aware of what's taking place and is making sure that information can still flow appropriately.
Right, right. And if I could add to that with Louisiana, so you know, it can all be done paperless. So there doesn't have to be in-person visits specific to Louisiana. And David, I think your matrix would be amazing, and we can, if we could share it, you know, we'd be happy to on the production community or anywhere else when it comes to trying to track how things will change now with COVID.
So in that vein, here's a follow-up question for David and Mary Ann. At this time, do you find that most domestic incentive jurisdictions accept for audits digital copies of backup, whether it's invoices, cast and crew contracts, petty cash receipts, or declaration of residency forms? I mean, it's just kind of like the next logical step in the subject you were speaking to a moment ago. David, do you want to go first, David, and then we'll go to Mary Ann?
Sure. Yes. Quick answer is yes. They are allowing that. Jurisdictions like Virginia, where we had to send in binders of all the residency forms, now is taking everything digitally via shared Dropbox. New York now takes everything digitally. So as the digital age becomes more and more prevalent, they are aware of that and they are accepting things in digital format.
Right. I work specifically for New Mexico. I don't do any other states. I only do New Mexico. But as far as New Mexico goes, they do accept the digital copies. And we don't, all we have to do is just upload them directly onto their secure website. And then whoever the auditor is at Tax and Rep will download them. So yes, they do accept them.
Next question. We have a production accountant who joined a tad late, but she's got a question about smart accounting and the incentives. She asks, can smart accounting organize documents per jurisdiction? Is it customizable?
Yes, smart accounting is customizable. There is different ways that you could identify the different types of jurisdictions. You know, we talked about the free field coding where you identify the type of expenditure that could be specific to that local incentive. You also have the ability to create certain location account segments. So if I was in shooting and I wanted to shoot in San Francisco, I could isolate those transactions by giving it a certain location code segment and separate that out from my shoot that's in Los Angeles. You also, if you have the ability and in shooting in foreign locations, chances are you're going to have multiple companies in different jurisdictions that you're in. So if you're in a different country, you may also be able to isolate those jurisdiction expenditures by company. So you'd be able to set up a separate company segment specifically for the different company that you may be shooting in the UK as compared to your company that you're shooting in California or in the United States. Same with Canada. You have a different company usually set up in Canada as you would in the US. So it really kind of depends, and you can see that the system is very flexible and customizable to your specific situation.
And Scott and Jeremy, how do you find that that impacts your work as you're preparing to go through an audit and actually going through it? Let's start with Scott.
Yeah, I mean, it all kind of goes back to at the very beginning of the show, the way you set it up, and you set it up in a way that accommodates the requirements of the jurisdiction, but also then can accommodate studio requirements or the show requirements. And there's a lot of latitude. You can talk to entertainment partners, and they can assist you in getting those things set up and guide you in a way based on other shows that have done it before, so you don't have to recreate the wheel, as it were.
Jeremy, anything to add?
I think just kind of what George showed earlier was the ability to, I think what's great is the ability to kind of stack the free fields and be able to tag one item with, in this case, up to 4 separate things. So you can kind of pull that information out pretty quickly and sift through it, depending if it's a studio need or an audit need. So that's, I think that's huge. When you're on the ground, and kind of going back to what David said earlier, just on COVID, is the ability to tag something, whether you know that what the outcome is or not, is the ability to tag on the fly, set up a free field tag on the fly, so you can go back to those costs pretty quickly, instead of going there after the fact and try to sift through it all and pull it out.
So there's a more general question that's come in. I think it was off of something that David or Mary Ann stated earlier. You used the word testing, and this viewer is asking if you can define the term testing. Was that you, David, that said that?
Probably. So testing is definitely a broad term, and every jurisdiction requires us to look at different items. So the testing for, say, accounts payable for us, in a jurisdiction such as California, we would have to actually take a transaction and then run it through a series of verification to make sure it's qualified. California, it's a California vendor. It occurred during a specific qualified time period. It was obviously paid, and it was a qualifiable expense, so it related to the production and it related to something that California considers a qualified expenditure. So that's broad strokes of testing in accounts payable. Payroll is somewhat similar. They have to be working on the production. They have to be an eligible position. In California, the directors don't qualify, but the production accountants do. So that's kind of a broader overview of how we do our testing.
Thanks, David. So there's a couple questions around the technology and the process of auditing. The first one is it possible to deposit ledgers for the auditors and synchronize, or do you have to send those just directly to the auditors outside the system? Who'd like to start with that?
I can say for us, we don't go into the accounting system at all. We do go into the file sharing system, and that's just based on independence. We don't want to have any access to the accounting ledger itself where it can be construed that we made changes to it. So we usually set up a shared system or they email us ledgers directly.
Also, to answer, oh, so go ahead, Mary Ann.
The production usually just emails me or sends me in a shared file the ledgers.
And I just wanted to inject in, and I don't know if Darren's there, but with Synchronized Smart Hub, you have the ability to put those ledgers in a file folder and then give permission to a Mary Ann, a David, any auditor to have access to it so that you don't have to send it via email.
Yeah, and actually coming real soon, we'll actually have a capability of connecting your smart accounting database to your Synchronized Smart Hub, so those reports can automatically flow into that area. So stay tuned for that.
Okay, Darren and George, don't go anywhere because the next question is also synchronized related. But Jeremy, Scott, Mary Ann, anybody else want to weigh in before we move on? All right.
I mean, the synchronized, you could kind of just use, like, I think the ideology is you could kind of use it as your Dropbox account, your secure Dropbox account.
Mm-hmm.
We do use it as a secure like we use it with our payroll. Like when we're doing payroll, it's very secure, and the payroll company kind of uses it.
Secure file transfer.
Yeah, we do a secure file between the two, which really cuts down. So, you know, if they're already going to have access to look at the backup through the Synchronized Smart Hub, you probably could get the ledgers up there and kind of use just one secure file.
Yeah, and the smart. Oh, I'm sorry, Mary Ann, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say that's really good to know because I'm going to suggest to my clients that they set up a folder and put the ledgers in there from this point forward, because I would feel more comfortable with that security.
Yeah, and it also allows for an additional level of security for the studios themselves. Everything's logged within the system, so they have that. They have a little bit more control over maybe who's having access to these documents and where it's going. So it's giving them that much more, control.
Next question is kind of in the same vein. Can all documents end up in Synchronize, including time cards, or is it just start documents?
All documents can be placed in there. You can scan your time cards, and I'll say again, coming soon with our new Smart Time release, we will have the ability of automatically publishing time cards from Smart Time directly into your Synchronized Smart Hub. So again, it's one of these like kind of stay tuned for it, but we are like right around the corner from this happening. So yeah, those are great questions.
So the next question I'd like to hear from every panelist on, which is how much pure time savings do you think you obtain by using technology versus paper? Scott, why don't we start with you?
Okay. Well, I think technology makes things much faster, much easier, much quicker. But it also allows the auditors, the studios, the networks to ask for more because you have more tools. So at the end of the day, do you save time or do you just provide people with more information in the same amount of time? And it's kind of that balance of what you can do and what people are asking you for. So the technology does make it faster, but it also gives you more things that you can get.
Jeremy, what's your experience so far?
I think, yeah. I mean, just the more technology, like with Smart Start, the technology accuracy and time saving, all built in. And to kind of like try to push this conversation that Darren started further about the sneak peek of what's to come, and with the current climate, getting the PO digitized and approved quickly, getting the AP scanned into the system, digitized and approved quickly. I can feel those things coming. I don't know where they are, but I can only see that there's going to be more of it, and it's all going to drop right into the Synchronize Hub. So I'm excited about something like that, but maybe not on my next show during kind of COVID, but I think coming up.
Jeremy, you're spot on. So stay tuned again,
Okay.
but
All right.
even closer than everything else that I've talked about. Yeah.
How about you, Mary Ann? What kind of time savings does technology give you over paper?
It gives a huge time savings. I'll give you an example. If I have a client who is all paper, I have to request the records. Then by the time they get it and they go to their warehouse, they bring the boxes to their office and they pull the information and scan it and send it back to me. We're talking sometimes a month and a half. Whereas Synchronize, I can just go in that day and pull up what I need. And it's easy. I can work 24 hours a day. I can work at 3 o'clock at night. You know, the time zones with different people, it's fabulous. I absolutely love it.
David?
Yeah, I agree with all the statements. It makes our audits so much more efficient. Just from the earlier example of traveling in LA traffic for hours, that's inefficient use of time. And to Mary Ann's point, when I'm finally off conference calls and Zooms and I get to some auditing at 10 o'clock at night, I don't have to bother anyone and I can just pull down what I need to start taking a look at things. All in all, it just makes everything so much more efficient.
So here's our last question, and it's directed to our auditors, Mary Ann and David. Can you do the audit 100% remotely? So productions don't have to pay for your travel, hotel, meals, etc.
Yes. I will answer first if that's okay, Mary Ann. I will say
yeah,
yes.
Sure.
We're in 12 different states. We only have offices in 2 of those states, and we do a majority of it remotely. I will say though, for Hawaii, I do prefer to go there and audit in person. That's one I like to take on. But most of the Nevada ones we do are 100% digital. They either send us files or mostly scans. So to answer the question, yes, we can absolutely 100% do an audit, not leaving our office.
Mary Ann?
And the same thing with us. We do everything remotely, so we don't travel anywhere.
Jeremy, Scott, how do you guys feel about remote audits?
I think they're great. I mean, you could still communicate and just talk, and you just send the auditors what they need. And it's again, technology makes it very easy and very simple to do it, as opposed to the old-fashioned way of digging through the files, photocopying it, scanning it, and and then sending it over, or copying it and putting it in a banker's box and shipping it. So the whole thing is streamlined and very efficient.
Jeremy, I'll give you the last word.
I guess the only thing I'd have to add, I agree with everything, but when you don't have auditors digging through your AP files, then you can't blame them for
misfiling. Well, that's why David just says, "Here, we'll pull it, but you got to refile.
You got to refile it."
So we get back to Melissa's stacks.
Oh, well, thank you so much, all of you, for your insight and information. This has been a really, really fantastic conversation. And I'd like to remind everyone that to be set up for success with your production incentives, EP can help you through all steps of the process. Email us at incentives@ep.com. Visit productionincentives.com for the latest information on jurisdictional news, and sign up for our newsletter to get any incentive updates. Also, we've got another webinar coming up. We'd like to invite everybody to do it. It's very specific and it's very cool. Next Thursday, special time, 8:30 a.m. We're going to be talking about digital production technology for COVID-19, secure production in the UK, smarter, safer production with POP. Join the We Got POP team for an exploration of the technology solution powering 50% of the UK's film and high-end television shows shooting post-COVID lockdown. It's going to enable them to return safely to set. We're very excited to have the POP team sharing that information with everyone who joins that webinar. You can revisit this webinar on theproductioncommunity.com. We'll have it posted later today. And just a reminder to everyone that you can check out any of our previous Master Series webinars. There's 55 of them. Today makes 56. You can visit our forums. You can ask industry or product questions. You can listen to podcasts with EP experts. It has our entire support library. There's over 2,200 KB articles. There's hundreds of how-to videos, tons of stuff, and it's searchable. If you want to know more about Smart Start, search Smart Start. If you need details and analysis about COVID-19 legislation, search it. If you're looking for a job, post your resume. There's a section for that too. Join the thousands of members who are already a part of the productioncommunity.com. I also want to remind you that in just a moment when this ends, you're going to get a quick survey. Take 30 seconds, please. Let us know how we did today. We'd love to hear from you. I want to also talk about my.ep.com. It's a new website. It's a new tool where you can access your last 3 years of EP pay information. You can compare week over week changes if there's a sample of what it looks like. And if you're filing an unemployment insurance claim, information you need for that claim is only a few clicks away at my.ep.com. It is also your destination to purchase the new Movie Magic Budgeting, which is available now. You can download it. We are offering the first month free. Take it for a test run. See how you like it. The feedback we've been getting back is phenomenal. Take advantage of that free month. Let us know what you think of the new Movie Magic Budgeting. We're excited to have that out in release. The only place you can get it is my.ep.com. Download it now. We're also excited to announce that we have launched an e-learning center. We have 6 classes in there already. Take a look. Production Accounting 101, Smart Accounting, Movie Magic. If you're a freelancer, these classes are free until July 31st. We got a special deal going on, so please register and take advantage of that promotion. We have over 11,000 users who have already signed up at the new my.ep.com, so please utilize the free resources there by registering today. And the last thing I want to mention in our shameless plugs here is Smart Hub Vault. For your working from home efficiency, EP and our partner GRM can help you today with digital mailroom and digital conversion services. So we want to let you know that our scanning service through GRM is available even though we're still under stay-at-home orders. And EP has a new solution that enables you to have secure, compliant, remote access to business-critical documents and data, as well as workflow and collaboration tools for remote work environments, which is why we're offering a free 60-day pilot for up to 10 users for Smart Hub Vault. Please contact us, masters@ep.com, to hear more. We would love to sign you up with that. Thank you again for joining us today. This has been a fabulous conversation. Thank you again to David, Mary Ann, Jeremy, and Scott for being a wonderful panel and providing tremendous insight both from the auditor perspective and the payroll accountant perspective with regard to audits. We look forward to seeing you again in future webinars. Everyone, please stay safe.